My name is Alex, and I was once the embodiment of a perfect life. I was a successful businessman with a thriving career, and my personal life seemed to mirror that success. I lived with my wife, Rachel, in a charming house on the outskirts of the city, where the hustle and bustle of urban life gave way to a serene and idyllic existence. Our home was a reflection of our stable and contented life together. It was a two-story house with a red brick facade, white shutters, and a well-manicured lawn that stretched out in front. The interior was warm and inviting, filled with carefully chosen furniture and personal touches that spoke of our shared history. The living room was adorned with soft, earth-toned furniture and a large fireplace that was often lit during the colder months. The kitchen, where Rachel and I had spent countless evenings cooking together, was equipped with the latest appliances and a breakfast nook that overlooked the garden. Every corner of our home had been meticulously arranged, and it was our sanctuary from the outside world. Rachel and I had been together for nearly a decade, having met during our college years and falling in love quickly. Our relationship had always been characterized by mutual respect and deep affection. Rachel was the kind of person who radiated warmth and kindness, with a smile that could brighten anyone's day. She worked as a freelance interior designer, a job she was passionate about, and her creativity often spilled over into our home, making it a place of beauty and comfort. Our life together was what most people would consider ideal. We had our routines, our little rituals, and a sense of contentment that many might envy. Weekends were spent exploring the countryside, attending local art fairs, or simply relaxing at home with a good book or a movie. We had our plans for the future, perhaps starting a family someday or traveling to places we had always dreamed of visiting. But as it often happens, the mundane routine of life can sometimes conceal the cracks that slowly form beneath the surface. I remember a time not so long ago when everything seemed to be in perfect order. But looking back, I realized that the signs were there. It was subtle at first, small changes in Rachel's behavior, a fleeting sense that something was not quite right. I brushed these thoughts aside, convinced that it was just the normal ebb and flow of our lives. Little did I know that this seemingly perfect life was about to come crashing down in a way that I could never have anticipated. One day, the stability and calm that we had so carefully built would unravel before my eyes, and the world I knew would be shattered. It was a moment that would test my very core, revealing truths that I had been blind to and setting in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of my life. As I reflect on those days now, I see how everything was leading up to that pivotal moment. The life we had so carefully crafted was about to be turned upside down, and nothing would ever be the same again. It started as something so innocuous that I almost didn't notice it at first. Rachel had always been friendly with our neighbors. But lately, she seemed to be spending an unusual amount of time with Nathan, the man who lived next door. Nathan was a well-mannered, middle-aged man who worked as a software engineer. He was polite and reserved, often seen in a button-down shirt and khakis. Our interactions with him had always been pleasant, but there was nothing particularly memorable about him. At first, Rachel's frequent visits to Nathan's house seemed innocent enough. She would often go over to help him with small tasks around his home, like fixing a leaky faucet or arranging some furniture. Nathan had recently mentioned that he was preparing his home for a large family gathering, and Rachel had offered her assistance, given her background in interior design. I assumed this was just a manifestation of her kind nature and her desire to help someone in need. It was only when I began to notice the subtle changes in their interactions that my initial concerns began to solidify. I would come home from work and find Rachel still over at Nathan's place, lingering for hours longer than she had initially planned. They would laugh and talk animatedly, their conversations flowing easily and seemingly without end. At times, I could catch snippets of their dialogue through the open window, and while nothing seemed overtly alarming, the tone was decidedly more personal and intimate than what I was accustomed to hearing. The physical proximity between them also began to shift in ways that made me uncomfortable. I would see them standing close together, their body language unusually casual for what I had always considered a platonic relationship. There were lingering touches, a hand on the arm, a pat on the back, that seemed to go beyond mere friendliness. At first, I dismissed these as harmless gestures, but they gradually became more frequent and more intimate. One evening, I was returning home earlier than usual, and as I drove up the street, I noticed Nathan's car parked outside his house. Rachel's car was right beside it, and the lights in Nathan's house were on. I decided to go inside and see if Rachel was ready to come home. As I approached their houses, I saw Rachel and Nathan standing on his porch, talking in low, earnest tones. They were too engrossed in their conversation to notice me, but I could see the way they looked at each other. It was a look of shared understanding and connection, something that seemed out of place for a casual friendship. That night, Rachel came home late, her demeanor a bit off kilter. She was unusually quiet, and her attempts to mask her irritation with a forced smile did not go unnoticed. I tried to broach the subject gently, asking her how her evening had gone and whether everything was all right. She brushed off my concerns with vague answers, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was being kept from me. Days turned into weeks, and the pattern continued. The frequency of Rachel's visits to Nathan's home increased, and the nature of their interactions grew even more personal. They would often be seen together, deep in conversation, or sometimes even sharing a meal. I started to feel a growing sense of unease, as if the ground beneath me was shifting and I was struggling to keep my footing. Rachel had always been open about her plans and activities, but her recent secrecy was a stark contrast to the transparency that had previously defined our relationship. There was an air of exclusivity around her time with Nathan, a sense that they were sharing something that was deliberately kept away from me. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what was happening, but the intuition that something was deeply wrong began to gnaw at me. As I observed their increasingly intimate interactions, I was confronted with the uncomfortable realization that my once clear and stable world was beginning to blur. The lines between friendship and something more were becoming dangerously indistinct, and I found myself on the precipice of a revelation that would shake the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my wife and our life together. It was an ordinary evening, one that was supposed to be just like any other. I had wrapped up a particularly grueling day at the office earlier than usual. And I decided to head home, eager to enjoy a quiet night with Rachel. The sun was setting as I pulled into our driveway, casting long shadows over the well-maintained lawn. The air was cool and crisp, a welcome contrast to the stress of the day. Little did I know, this would be a night that would forever alter the course of my life. As I entered our home, the silence was almost palpable. Rachel's car was in the garage, so she must have been home. I called out to her, but there was no response. I took off my coat and walked through the foyer, the familiar creak of the wooden floor beneath my feet a reassuring sound. I could hear faint noises coming from upstairs, but they were indistinct and muffled. Curiosity piqued, and I decided to investigate. I made my way up the stairs, each step echoing slightly in the quiet house. As I reached the landing, I noticed that our bedroom door was slightly ajar. It was unusual. Rachel was always meticulous about closing doors, a habit that spoke to her desire for order and privacy. I approached the door with a sense of foreboding, my heart beginning to race. The noises were clearer now, soft, hushed voices, and a low, unfamiliar murmur. I pushed the door open gently and peered inside. What I saw will forever be burned into my memory. Rachel and Nathan were standing in the middle of our bedroom, their expressions frozen in shock as they saw me standing in the doorway. Rachel was in a state of undress, her clothes hastily pulled on, and Nathan looked equally disheveled. They had been caught in an intimate moment, their bodies too close together for it to have been anything other than what I feared. The sight was a visceral blow to my senses. My mind raced to piece together the fragments of reality that were now laid bare before me. The room, once a sanctuary of our shared life, felt like a cold and foreign place. The bed, our bed, was disheveled, and the unmistakable scent of perfume mingled with something else, something that spoke of betrayal. Rachel's face was a mask of horror as she took in the sight of me. Her eyes widened, and her mouth opened slightly as if to speak, but no words came out. She seemed rooted to the spot, unable to move or react. The shock on her face was mirrored by the look of guilty panic on Nathan's, who seemed to be grasping for some semblance of an explanation or excuse. The gravity of the situation hit me like a tidal wave. All the subtle signs, the uneasy feelings, and the creeping dread culminated in this one, definitive moment. The realization of Rachel's betrayal was overwhelming. A crushing blow that left me feeling both numb and searingly awake. Alex, Rachel began, her voice trembling, but the words seemed inadequate, almost meaningless in the face of what had just been exposed. I felt a surge of anger and disbelief, a tumult of emotions that I struggled to contain. The serene life I had once known was shattered, and the trust I had placed in Rachel was obliterated in an instant. The reality of her betrayal was too raw, too immediate to process fully at that moment. I turned and walked away from the bedroom, the echoes of my steps a stark contrast to the silence that followed me. I needed to escape the scene, gather my thoughts, and find some semblance of clarity. As I descended the stairs, the weight of what had transpired pressed down on me, an inescapable burden that would forever alter my perception of love, trust, and fidelity. The house, once a haven of peace and comfort, now felt like a cage of betrayal. The life I thought I understood had been upended, and the path forward seemed uncertain and fraught with pain. What had begun as a quiet evening had turned into a harrowing revelation, one that would set the stage for a series of decisions that would shape the rest of my life. The moments following the revelation were a blur of raw emotions and shattered trust. I had walked away from the bedroom, my mind racing as I descended the stairs, desperately trying to grapple with the enormity of what I had just witnessed. The walls of our home seemed to close in around me. The familiar surroundings now tainted by the betrayal that had unfolded within our sanctuary. Rachel followed me down the stairs, her footsteps hurried and frantic. Her voice, previously calm and collected, now carried a desperate edge as she tried to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. "Alex, please," she began, her voice quivering. "Let me explain. It's not what it looks like. You don't understand." I could hear the panic in her voice, a stark contrast to the calm demeanor she had always maintained. Her eyes were wide with fear and sorrow, and her hands were trembling as she reached out toward me. But I was already beyond the point of listening. The words she spoke were drowned out by the roaring chaos in my mind, a storm of anger, hurt, and betrayal that left me numb and unable to focus on anything but the pain. "How can you say that?" I interrupted her, my voice cold and devoid of the warmth it once held. "How can you stand there and try to explain this away? I saw everything, Rachel. I saw you with Nathan. I didn't mean for this to happen," Rachel pleaded, her eyes welling up with tears. "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I never meant to hurt you. Please, Alex, you have to believe me. We can work through this. I love you. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Her words felt like a feeble attempt to patch the gaping wound that had been inflicted on our relationship. The sincerity she tried to convey was overshadowed by the gravity of her actions. My world, once so stable and predictable, had crumbled into a million pieces, and the emotional wreckage left me unable to process or respond in any meaningful way. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a physical manifestation of the emotional pain that was overwhelming me. My breaths came in ragged gasps, each one a reminder of the hurt that had been inflicted upon me. The room felt stifling, the air heavy with the weight of the betrayal that hung between us. The once comforting space now seemed alien and hostile, filled with the echoes of deceit and dishonesty. As Rachel continued to speak, her voice becoming increasingly desperate, I felt a growing distance between us. Her attempts to explain or justify her actions only deepened the chasm. The more she spoke, the more I felt my resolve hardening. It was as if the reality of her betrayal was crystallizing in my mind, each moment of her explanation serving as a stark reminder of the trust that had been so brutally violated. I moved away from her, seeking some semblance of solitude amid the chaos. My mind was a swirling vortex of disbelief and hurt, and I needed space to breathe, to think, to understand what had just happened. The walls of our home, once a symbol of our shared life, now felt like barriers closing in on me, trapping me in a reality I could barely comprehend. Rachel's pleas grew fainter as I distanced myself, her cries of remorse and desperation fading into the background. I could no longer bear to listen to her explanations, as they only served to highlight the stark contrast between her words and the truth of what I had witnessed. The sense of betrayal was too deep, too pervasive, for me to find solace in her attempts at reconciliation. The evening had started with such promise but had devolved into a night of shattered dreams and broken trust. As I sat in the dimly lit living room, my thoughts raced through the memories of our life together, now tainted by the knowledge of her infidelity. The reality of what had transpired weighed heavily on me, and I struggled to find a way forward from this devastating revelation. The shock and disbelief of the moment left me feeling as though I was suspended in a state of suspended animation, unable to fully process or accept the enormity of the betrayal. The life I had once known was irreparably altered, and the path ahead seemed shrouded in uncertainty and pain. In the days following the revelation, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, hurt, betrayal. The shock of discovering Rachel's affair with Nathan had left me reeling. But amidst the turmoil, a cold, calculated resolve began to take shape. I knew I needed to channel my pain into something that would restore some semblance of control in my life. Revenge became the driving force, a way to balance the scales and reclaim my sense of agency. The decision to exact revenge was not impulsive, it was a calculated response to the deep betrayal I had endured. I felt a dual obligation: first, to make Rachel understand the full extent of her wrongdoing, and second, to ensure that Nathan faced consequences for his role in the betrayal. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that my revenge needed to be deliberate and impactful. Rachel's infidelity had been a betrayal of the highest order, but Nathan's involvement made it even more personal. He was not just a distant figure, he was our neighbor, someone who had been welcomed into our home and trusted as a friend. His actions had not only hurt me but had undermined the very fabric of our relationship. The thought of him continuing with his life as if nothing had happened was intolerable. The plan I devised was ruthless but felt necessary to me. I wanted to ensure that both Rachel and Nathan would feel the sting of their actions and that they would understand the gravity of what they had done. It would be a carefully orchestrated series of moves, designed to hit them where it would hurt the most, emotionally and practically. The first step in my plan was to seek solace and support from someone who had always been a close friend to me: Rachel's sister, Claire. Claire had been a part of our lives for as long as I could remember. She was vibrant and intelligent, and had always shown a genuine interest in my well-being. We had shared many conversations over the years, and I had always admired her wit and charm. It seemed fitting that she would be the person to help me navigate this dark period. I reached out to Claire, initially under the pretext of needing to talk about the situation with Rachel. She was sympathetic and concerned, her natural kindness shining through in our conversations. We began meeting more frequently, initially as friends offering support to one another. But as our interactions continued, I found myself drawn to her in a way I hadn't anticipated. Claire's presence was a stark contrast to the turmoil I was experiencing. She listened without judgment, offering empathy and understanding. Our conversations grew more personal, and I began to confide in her about the details of Rachel's betrayal and the emotional struggle I was enduring. Claire responded with warmth and compassion, her support becoming a lifeline in my time of need. As we spent more time together, the nature of our relationship began to shift. What started as mutual support evolved into a deeper emotional connection. There was a palpable chemistry between us, an unspoken understanding that grew stronger with each meeting. We laughed together, shared our thoughts and fears, and found solace in one another's company. Our bond quickly turned from platonic to romantic. The initial spark of attraction transformed into a full-fledged affair, one that was fueled by the emotional intensity of the situation and our shared experiences. I found comfort and validation in Claire's arms, a stark contrast to the betrayal I had suffered from Rachel. Our relationship was both a source of solace and a form of retribution. As I grew closer to Claire, I began to see her as an ally in my plan for revenge. She was not only providing me with emotional support but also becoming an integral part of my strategy. Her involvement would complicate matters for Rachel and Nathan, adding a layer of personal and emotional upheaval to the consequences of their actions. The plan was taking shape. I would use my relationship with Claire as a means to strike back at Rachel and Nathan. It was not just about inflicting pain but also about making them confront the reality of their choices. Claire's presence in my life was a way to demonstrate that their betrayal had repercussions beyond the immediate damage they had caused. It was a calculated move designed to make them fully aware of the cost of their actions. With Claire by my side, the path forward seemed clearer. My plan for revenge was set into motion, driven by a need to balance the scales and reclaim my sense of control. The steps I would take were deliberate, each one designed to ensure that Rachel and Nathan would feel the full weight of their betrayal and understand the profound impact of their actions. In the wake of the betrayal that had shaken my world, Claire became a beacon of support and solace. What began as a necessary alliance in my quest for revenge slowly evolved into something more profound. The shift from friendship to romance was neither abrupt nor planned. It was a gradual process marked by the intertwining of our lives and emotions in a way that neither of us had anticipated. Our time together started innocuously enough. We would meet at local cafes, enjoy quiet dinners, or simply take long walks through the park. These moments were initially intended to provide me with a reprieve from the chaos that had erupted in my life. Yet, as we spent more time together, I began to notice how naturally we connected on an emotional level. Claire's empathy and understanding provided a contrast to the cold betrayal I had endured, offering me a sense of peace that I had been desperately seeking. Claire was more than just a supportive presence. She was an active participant in helping me navigate the tumultuous emotions I was facing. Her insight and compassion became a balm for the wounds inflicted by Rachel's infidelity. Our conversations were candid and deeply personal, and I found myself confiding in Claire in ways I had never imagined. She was a constant source of comfort, her ability to listen without judgment a welcome change from the betrayal I had experienced. As weeks passed, the boundaries of our relationship began to shift. The chemistry that had always been present between us became more pronounced. Our interactions took on a new dimension, one that was charged with an undeniable attraction. We would exchange lingering glances and light touches that spoke volumes more than words ever could. The ease with which we fell into each other's company made it clear that our connection was evolving beyond mere friendship. The turning point came one evening when we were alone at Claire's apartment. We had been discussing the complexities of my situation, the pain I had endured, and how she had supported me through it all. The conversation grew more intimate, and the emotional intensity of the moment was palpable. As we talked, the distance between us closed, and we found ourselves drawn together in a way that was both natural and inevitable. When our lips met for the first time, it was a tender and hesitant kiss that spoke of the shared vulnerability and longing we had both been feeling. It was a moment of profound connection, a manifestation of the deep emotional bond that had been building between us. The kiss was both an affirmation of our feelings and a culmination of the growing intimacy we had been cultivating. Our romantic involvement was not a mere act of revenge. It was a complex and deeply felt relationship that had developed over time. Claire knew about my plans for retribution against Rachel and Nathan, and while she supported my desire for revenge, she was also genuinely invested in my well-being. Her role in my life was more than just a means to an end. She was a confidant and a partner who stood by me through every twist and turn of the emotional roller coaster. Claire's support went beyond mere encouragement. She actively participated in my plans, offering strategic advice and helping me manage the complexities of the situation. Her understanding of the emotional landscape made her an invaluable ally, and her unwavering presence provided me with the strength I needed to carry out my plans. As our relationship deepened, it became clear that Claire was not just a temporary source of comfort but a significant part of my life. Her support and affection helped to heal the wounds inflicted by Rachel's betrayal, and the connection we shared was genuine and profound. The romantic bond that had developed between us was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity for new beginnings, even in the face of betrayal. In Claire, I found more than just a partner in revenge. I found someone who understood me on a level that went beyond the superficial. Our relationship was built on a foundation of shared experiences and emotional intimacy, making it a source of both comfort and strength. The gradual nature of our closeness allowed us to build a meaningful connection, one that would become an integral part of the journey ahead. Amid the storm that had enveloped my life, there emerged a surprising clarity. Amidst the pain and the tumult of revenge, I discovered an unexpected opportunity to make a positive impact on Claire's life. Our relationship had evolved into something genuine and significant, and I felt a profound desire to support her in a way that went beyond the realm of emotional solace. Claire had always been driven and ambitious, with a dream of establishing her own business, a boutique creative agency that she envisioned as a platform for her talents and passions. Over the years, she had talked about her business ideas with a mix of excitement and frustration. She had the vision, the skills, and the dedication. But the financial constraints had been a persistent barrier, preventing her from bringing her dreams to fruition. Our relationship had brought me to a place of introspection and reevaluation. I realized that, in addition to the emotional support I was receiving from Claire, I had the means and the resources to make a tangible difference in her life. My financial situation allowed me the flexibility to offer assistance, and I felt a compelling urge to help her achieve her long-held dream. The decision to provide financial support was not made lightly. It was a blend of genuine affection and a desire to create a positive impact in Claire's life. The more I learned about her business aspirations, the more I understood the depth of her commitment and the potential that her venture held. It became clear that her success was not only a personal victory for her but also a testament to the strength and resilience she had shown throughout our journey together. One evening, as we sat in the cozy comfort of Claire's apartment, I broached the subject with a mixture of hesitation and resolve. We had been discussing her business plans in detail, and I could see the fire in her eyes as she spoke about her vision. I took a deep breath and said, "Claire, I've been thinking a lot about what you've shared with me. I know how much this business means to you, and I want to help make it a reality." Her eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, she seemed at a loss for words. The expression on her face shifted from shock to a mixture of hope and disbelief. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to invest in your business," I said, my voice steady and sincere. "I have the resources to provide the financial support you need to get it off the ground. I believe in your vision, and I want to help you succeed." Claire's reaction was a mix of emotions. Tears welled up in her eyes as she processed the enormity of what I was offering. The gratitude and relief were evident, but so was the weight of the decision. She had always been fiercely independent, and the offer of financial assistance was both a blessing and a challenge to her sense of self-reliance. "I don't know what to say," she finally managed, her voice choked with emotion. "This means more to me than I can express. I've dreamed of this for so long, and I never thought I'd have the opportunity to make it happen." "But are you sure about this? It's a significant investment." I reassured her with a gentle nod. "I'm certain. I believe in you and your talent. This is not just about the money. It's about supporting someone who has become incredibly important to me. I want to see you succeed, and I'm willing to invest in that success." The financial support I offered was structured to provide Claire with the necessary capital to launch her business, covering initial expenses such as office space, equipment, and marketing. It was a significant amount, but it was intended to give her the breathing room she needed to focus on growing her business without the constant stress of financial limitations. As Claire began to implement her business plan with the new resources at her disposal, I saw the transformation in her. Her energy and enthusiasm were revitalized, and the dream that had once seemed distant was now taking shape before our eyes. It was a powerful reminder of the impact that support and belief can have on someone's aspirations. The financial assistance was more than just a monetary transaction. It was a gesture of trust, commitment, and shared vision. It reinforced the bond between Claire and me, solidifying our relationship and demonstrating the depth of my support for her. In helping Claire achieve her dreams, I found a new sense of purpose and fulfillment, a positive counterbalance to the pain of the past, and a testament to the potential for new beginnings. The days and weeks following my decision to support Claire's business were marked by a sense of purpose and progress. Claire's creative agency began to take shape, and our relationship grew stronger, marked by a newfound optimism and shared goals. The once turbulent landscape of my life was slowly transforming into one of renewed hope and collaboration. However, this period of growth and change was about to face a jarring interruption. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Rachel, seemingly by chance, stumbled upon the new chapter of my life. I had been working with Claire at her office, and we were preparing for a significant client pitch. Our collaboration was evident in the way we worked seamlessly together, and our relationship, though discreet, was becoming more visible to those around us. Rachel had always been perceptive, and her curiosity seemed to have drawn her to the bustling area of Claire's business. I was discussing marketing strategies with Claire when Rachel walked into the office, her presence cutting through the atmosphere like a sudden gust of wind. Her eyes, usually warm and inviting, were now filled with a mix of shock and disbelief. The moment she stepped inside, the air seemed to thicken with tension. Claire looked up, her expression shifting from focused concentration to one of surprise. Rachel's gaze fixed on me, her face a portrait of confusion and pain. It was clear that she had not anticipated encountering me in such a setting. The reality of our new relationship was laid bare before her, and the sight of Claire's office, a symbol of the dreams she was now nurturing, was a stark contrast to the betrayal she had once inflicted. "What are you doing here?" Rachel's voice was sharp, laced with a mixture of anger and anguish. Her eyes darted between Claire and me as if trying to piece together the context of the situation. I met her gaze with a calm and composed demeanor, though inside, I was bracing for the emotional storm that was about to unfold. "Rachel," I began, my voice steady, "this is Claire's office. We've been working together on her business venture. I didn't expect to see you here." Claire, sensing the charged atmosphere, stood up from her desk, her expression a blend of nervousness and defiance. "Rachel, I'm sorry you had to find out this way," she said, her voice tinged with empathy and resolution. "Alex and I have been working together, and our relationship has grown beyond a professional one." Rachel's face turned pale as she took in Claire's words. The realization of our romantic involvement hit her with the force of a tidal wave. She took a step back, her hand instinctively reaching out to steady herself against the desk. The shock was palpable, and her emotions were raw and unfiltered. "I can't believe this," Rachel said, her voice breaking. I never imagined." Her voice trailed off as she struggled to come to terms with the reality of the situation. The betrayal she had once inflicted on me was now mirrored in the way she was experiencing the consequences of her actions. It was a bitter irony that the support I had offered Claire had become a source of anguish for Rachel, highlighting the profound impact of her infidelity. Rachel's eyes were filled with tears as she looked at Claire and me. The weight of her actions seemed to be crashing down upon her, and the realization that she had not only lost me but had also contributed to Claire's newfound success was almost too much for her to bear. "You didn't just lose me," I said, my voice firm but not unkind. "You lost any chance of redemption through the way you treated me. Claire and I have built something together, something that goes beyond what we once had." And you're seeing the tangible results of the choices you made. Dot. Rachel's shoulders slumped, and she sank into a nearby chair, her eyes reflecting a mixture of regret and resignation. The magnitude of her actions was hitting her with an emotional force that was impossible to ignore. The pain of her betrayal was now compounded by the sight of me moving forward, building a new life with Claire, a life that was thriving and fulfilling in ways that Rachel's actions could no longer touch. Claire, standing beside me, offered a quiet but firm support. Her presence was a testament to the new chapter we had embraced. And it served as a reminder of the transformation that had taken place in our lives. The once idealized image of our shared future was now replaced by the stark reality of the choices we had made and the consequences they had wrought. As Rachel absorbed the scene before her, it became clear that the repercussions of her actions were far-reaching. She was faced with the realization that the life she had known had irrevocably changed, and the consequences of her betrayal were now fully evident. The revelation was not just a shock, it was a profound moment of reckoning, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another for all involved. The days that followed Rachel's shocking discovery were filled with a tense and uneasy atmosphere. Rachel, in her desperation to salvage what was left of our relationship, made every effort to repair the irreparable. Her attempts ranged from heartfelt apologies to grand gestures of reconciliation, each one a reflection of her regret and the profound realization of what she had lost. But no matter how sincere or elaborate her efforts were, they were met with a resolute silence from me. The wound of betrayal was too deep, the trust broken beyond repair. Rachel began by reaching out to me, her messages filled with pleas for forgiveness and promises to make amends. She spoke of the mistakes she had made, of the love she still felt for me, and of her willingness to work on our relationship. Her words were earnest, but they were also a stark reminder of the pain she had caused. Each conversation was an exercise in navigating the chasm that had formed between us, a chasm that no amount of words or apologies could bridge. In our interactions, Rachel's distress was palpable. She was visibly shaken by the reality of our situation, her eyes often reflecting a mix of anguish and desperation. She would come to my house, trying to rekindle a sense of normalcy, but her presence only served as a reminder of the shattered trust. I could see the toll it was taking on her. But the damage done was irreversible. Her efforts, though heartfelt, only highlighted the finality of our separation. Despite her earnest attempts, I found myself unable to revisit the past or envision a future with her. The betrayal had created a rift so profound that every interaction was tinged with an overwhelming sense of loss and disillusionment. Rachel's actions had irreparably altered the fabric of our relationship, and no amount of effort could restore it to what it once was. As Rachel continued to struggle with the reality of our situation, I made the difficult decision to end our relationship. I chose to leave the life we had built together behind, a decision that was both painful and necessary. The separation was not just a physical act but an emotional one, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter in my life. The process of moving on was both liberating and daunting. Leaving Rachel was a step toward reclaiming my sense of self and starting anew. It was an act of closure, allowing me to distance myself from the past and focus on the future that lay ahead. In the wake of this decision, my relationship with Claire evolved into something more profound and fulfilling. Claire had been a constant source of support and love throughout the turmoil, and our bond had deepened in ways I had never anticipated. She had not only been a partner in navigating the emotional aftermath but also an integral part of my new beginning. Claire and I began to build a life together that was rooted in mutual respect and shared goals. The business venture that had initially brought us together flourished under our combined efforts. Claire's agency grew into a thriving enterprise, and my involvement in the business provided both a professional and personal connection that was both rewarding and fulfilling. Our relationship extended beyond the romantic into the realm of partnership. We worked together seamlessly, blending our personal and professional lives into a harmonious and successful collaboration. Claire's business became a testament to her vision and talent. And our joint efforts made it a reality. Our partnership was marked by a shared sense of purpose and achievement, solidifying our bond and reinforcing the new life we had created together. The resolution of my journey was not simply about moving on from Rachel but also about embracing the possibilities that lay ahead with Claire. The pain of betrayal was replaced by the joy of new beginnings, and the lessons learned from the past informed the future we were building. Rachel's attempts to return things to their previous state had been in vain, as the path forward was clearly defined by the new relationship and opportunities that had emerged. In the end, the resolution was one of transformation and renewal. I had moved past the betrayal and found solace and fulfillment in a relationship that was built on trust, respect, and shared aspirations. The journey from heartbreak to healing had been long and arduous, but it had ultimately led to a place of genuine happiness and new beginnings.